Let's take a phone call just to try this out. Calling from a 973 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. It's John calling from Washington, D.C. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. I'm glad that worked. Hey, John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been meaning to call in for a little bit about Joe Biden's Social Security record. Kind of off topic with COVID and all that, but thought I'd bring up
there's a
particularly 19.
There's a primary election going on in Florida right now and in Arizona, and there's a lot of people who are of age to be on Social Security, and frankly, we're all going to be on Social Security. And I think, well, I mean, you go ahead and talk about his record, but it is a problem to have a guy who has been so dedicated to cutting it. To me, it's less because I don't think he can get away. Well, go ahead. Say what you were going to say.
Yeah, well, so what I wanted to talk about, everyone talks about like how he's tried to cut it in the past, how he's talked about cutting it. Sam, do you know about the 1983 Social Security amendments?
I do. This was a committee that was set up during the Reagan era in anticipation of the baby boom hitting retirement age and requiring more money. And so there were hikes to the employer side and to the employee side of payroll tax.
Well, so those hikes were already set up. They just moved up the timeline. So, like, let's say the hike was supposed to take place in 1985. They just moved it to 84.
Okay.
But the other things that it did was it taxed benefits. It froze the cost of living increase for, I think, 6 months. And then it also raised the Social Security age from age 65 to 67. And it's like a graduated scale. So if you're born earlier, you might be like 65 and a half.
Right.
Someone my age is fully 67. But all of these amendments, and which I completely consider cuts, were voted on by one Joe Biden. So he didn't just try to cut Social Security. He has actively voted to cut Social Security.
Yeah, and I think, the concern isn't necessarily that he's going to come into office and finally cut Social Security. Although, I mean, in the past, he's certainly been, he's like, well, I had to because there was such concern over the deficit. Here's a little surprise for people. And if this comes as a shock to you, it's because you have not followed politics.
It's not part of the deficit.
Well, first off,
like Social Security is not on the deficit.
Like statutorily, the Social Security Trust Fund cannot statutorily by law money cannot contribute to the deficit. It's just like a completely separate account. However, there's a reason why Al Gore talked about a lockbox in 2000. And that is because what people hope to do is divert this money, even though it's not contributing to the Social Security Trust Fund. The U.S. government has borrowed money from the trust fund, basically say, like, we don't want to pay that money back. That's what this is all about. That's why they want to cut Social Security benefits so that the U.S. government does not have to make good on the money that it is taken from Social Security to pay for other things like maybe tax cuts on corporations. The fact is that as soon as a Democrat gets elected to president, regardless of what is going to happen and we're going to have, I mean, if you think we have massive deficits and debt now, in 6 to 8 months, when tax revenues start to plummet because so many people have gone out of business and because there's been no economic activity, the idea that Joe Biden in the past has justified, and he justified it recently, his desire to cut Social Security based upon deficits in the past, I got news for you. It's going to be a crap storm of deficit going forward. And if he couldn't resist that temptation in the past, he is not going to resist it in the future. And he is willing to basically put the onus of the failure of taxation on the very wealthy onto everybody who has paid into this system and who has relied on it for their retirement. I mean, that should be the concern that people have. He's justified these desires for cuts because at the time everybody was worried about the deficit. I got news for you. They're going to be worried about it again because that's what happens every time a Democratic president is elected. And he certainly was worried about it in 2013 and in 2012 and in 2011. As part of the Obama administration, they offered up cuts to Social Security to the Republicans as part of a grand bargain because at the end of the day, they got no problem screwing over people in their retirement if it behooves them. Appreciate the call, man.
Yeah, thanks. Have a good one.
You too.